I wouldn't have never, my grandfather never told me nothing about no OMAC or no attack or none of that, okay? But he told me about Shatta. But what I found amazing was to do this dialogue, okay, talking about my Shatta heritage, and this man talking about the Bolivia culture that has been whitewashed, and then for me to come home and end up pulling up a OMAC-looking head in Bolivia made out of bricks. Wasn't that amazing?
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Please continue.
So if you have time, or if you're near a computer, type in Shatta Mountain, and you will see the same head like you placed on the side of me, something that I did not know of. But I would ask my grandfather, well, where do we come from? He said, we've been here always. Okay, so what do we own? You own everything. But
we
it was
are
taken.
everywhere.
That's right. So now I'm understanding even my grandfather even better. You getting what I'm saying? Because he was telling the stories that was passed to him. And I wasn't calculating it at the same level that he was giving it to me at that time. But I did comprehend it and I stored it. But later in time, my grandfather is still walking with me with the stories that he taught me, because that is what have guided me in my research to prove that we are not gone. And with the last breath in my body, I'm always fighting to prove that we are not going. We are not going. And I'm not going to say that we are no Moors. No, we are Shatta. Okay? So, from my understanding, then, Shatta must go back beyond the word OMAC. My grandfather said, my grandmothers were queens. My grandfather were kings. I had someone attack me after I did a Kellogg thing I was telling you about, and said that we Indians didn't use the word kings and queens. Well, let's do this. Maybe modern Indian that man created when they came here didn't use those terminologies. But evidently we use kings and queens, because even in Hebrew time we were using terminology kings and queens. Okay? So we got to look at who is the indigenous people. Who is these modern Indians that they keep talking about? Okay? And why the modern Indian DNA does not match the ancient DNA of and still do mounding every year. And it's only one place, and I found this out in my adult life, because I grew up doing the ceremony of the dead, and we still do it, okay? And then as I began speaking and talking to other people in other countries, and give you a chance to go across ethnic lines, I found out that the only other place they do the ceremony of the dead is in Mexico, okay? And I was told when Katrina hit, I left here before it hit, and I was in Arkansas, and took a lot of my people there, and we were there for 18 months. But when October came, it was time to prepare for the ceremony of the dead. And no matter if no one house was built back or whatever, we migrated back to do what we have done for thousands of years. So one of my members asked me, she said, you think the ceremony of the dead is going to be canceled? I said, it's never been canceled in thousands of years. It won't be canceled. I said, by the time we drive down there, you're going to find lights burning in the woods, as usual, at the burials. And it was. And even though they had trees all over, the elders in the 80s and 90s had got out there and found a way to do a safe ceremony. And when I got back and I saw it, a white gentleman from the Beaumont family of Beaumont, Texas, lived not too far from us. He grew up in this area, so he knows that we're Indians, because a lot of Indians work for the Beaumont family, okay? He said that he had the people from Mexico who had came in to work on cleanup in these areas down here after Katrina saw our ceremony, and he said they was down on their knees giving honors to the ceremony. And he thought it was strange, and he said, well, we do the same ceremony on the same exact day. So he told me about this story, and I told him, well, I experienced some things in Arkansas with people who were Mexican Indian, and they acknowledged who I was because of the word Shatta also. So me and him began to talk. And I started talking to other people who celebrate the ceremony of the dead to find out we all still do the Feast of the Dead. And the only other place do that is Mexico. So now we're going back to that OMAC thing, correct? So
isn't that beautiful? That is powerful. Thank you.
And so when I look at migrations maps and stuff, some people said in as early as the early 1700s, latter 1800s, latter 1600s, that they had put us with the OMAC back then because of something they saw in the migration pattern, okay, of it being the same people. That's why I say, who says Poverty Point is not a part of Shafunkta Shatta people, okay? I don't think everybody in Poverty Point just packed up and moved and just disappeared. And they were mound builders. You know, wherever you see the mounds. Right now, Louisiana DOT, Department of Transportation, was doing a project, and they gave me a letter and a packet that dated the mounds to 250 BC that they had accredited to the Mississippian culture. The Mississippian culture come way after the Shatta culture, okay? So when you're looking at these scales, I don't see all these other names of these newly federal recognized tribes in modern day Indians. I see the ancient Indians and the ancient names. So I began asking anthropologists and archaeologists a question. If I go get my DNA taken, would it match the modern day Indian? And they said no. If I take the modern day Indians and compare them to the ancient bodies that's being found, would it match? They said no. Okay? So I said, well, who matched the ancient people? The modern Indians, we need to realize, is what they're calling it, modern day Indians. And the ancient Indians is who they are. I've been told that if you would do an ancient DNA and then you do my DNA, it would match. Okay? I had an anthropologist who tracked me down through LSU University, and this gentleman is well renowned, and he found me because he said his research brought him and led him to me and my people. So there are anthropologists and archaeologists and historians, just like Dr. David did, have written and did work and say, okay, well, where are they? Well, here's where we're at. We're not trying to be federally recognized until after Katrina, somebody kept saying you need to do this so you can help your people recover. I'm telling you, it didn't work because it's highly racial. And you got to go through too much, and you have to give them all of your information and everybody in your family name and all this stuff. We done been through that in the past. And when they done took court records to track us down, and then once you know anything, they done erase your history. And then you didn't end up with some kind of sickness and you dying somewhere. That's called eugenics, okay? And we are a victim of eugenics. Well, eugenics was something that a lot of your bigger business people of this here United States as we know it, or Wall Street, developed along with some scientists to eliminate the people that was black, okay? And I'm going to speed up. By 1924, it became to its perfection. And eugenics was practiced and brought to its perfection here in the South, here in Louisiana, present-day Louisiana, and used by Hitler against the Jews. Okay? So here we got eugenics. We got Racial Integrity Acts of 1924 that allowed by law to finish erasing us and putting us in a one-box system, and, of black, and then the next box is white. You only had two races, black or white. Even the Indians that so-called the modern Indians that's federally recognized today, at one point in time, if you look at their records and you go back, they fell into a white box. And the darker Indians had been put and placed in the black box. So you only had two boxes. You didn't have a box that said Greek or German or Irish or Shatta. You had two boxes, black and white. And the red box was always being subdivided into those groups, okay? So we have to really go back and look at what the Racial Integrity Act did in the 1900s that capitalized off of what was done in the 1800s, and then we got to walk over back to the 1700s, and then in the 1700s you're going to start to find that you got people who came here under the Sangre Act. And they were people of color. So they've always played the people of color against each other, and a small minute of the people of color will excel, but the mass majority will hold each other down, and the whiter Europeans end up taking over control from one country to the next. Now, some people may say that is a racial statement based on whoever they are out there in listening land, but it is racial.